Welcome to another change-making conversation from Baptist News Global. You're listening to a special podcast series titled Highest Power, Church and State, featuring writer, poet, and musician Rick Pidcock. Now here's Rick.
What do two sound guys missing a flight to Rochester, New York, and a worship gathering in Chicago have to do with the GOP's attempt to hold on to complete control of the government after the nationwide midterm elections in November? We will be getting into what this has to do with the midterms, but first, we need to begin with Christian nationalist worship leader Sean Feucht in Rochester, New York, on Saturday, as he went to social media in a panic because his two sound guys missed their flight for his worship event.
Well, happy Saturday, everyone. I have an urgent prayer request. Very urgent. All the prayer warriors, we need you right now. We're in downtown Rochester. We have set up, we got the baptismal, we got the sound gear. The only problem is we don't have sound guys. Both of our sound guys missed their flight connections in today and will not make it in time. And so we need God to show up. We need sound guys to show up. We start at 5 p.m. Jesus. So pray with us that God would provide. This is a prayer I don't think we've ever prayed before. God provides sound guys, but I'm asking you to pray with us.
So why was this such a big deal? When I posted about it on Facebook, a lot of people were making fun of him, and many people were confused as to why it would supposedly be the end of the world for two sound guys to miss their flight. So I posted a reel on Facebook to explain.
I posted something earlier today about Sean Feucht. He is doing a worship rally in Rochester, I believe. And he's in a panic today. He posted a status and said prayer is urgently needed, and because not because there's some kind of big health scare or somebody's in physical danger, but because his two sound guys missed their flight, and so this is a very urgent situation. And a lot of people are laughing about it. It's kind of hilarious, and sure, it's pretty funny. The fact, with everything going on in the world, this is something that deserves, some kind of like ambulance-looking light in your post and all caps urgent and we are scrambling and all this kind of stuff. They got to get their sound guys in. And so, but I wanted to share a little bit of why this is causing such a panic for him, or why it may be causing such a panic for him. Because Sean Feucht believes that worship is warfare. He believes that worship is a weapon that you wage against the darkness, the spiritual darkness. And it's an election season, so things are ramped up even more, because if the Democrats win, then, the spiritual darkness wins. And if the Republicans win, then at least there's a chance that the light has won. And so, and he has a history with this. You may recall during COVID and around COVID, Sean Feucht often brags about being the number one COVID violator. And he brags about all of these fines that he took on. And the reason why was that this was post George Floyd and the murder of George Floyd. Sean Feucht, so there would be these Black Lives Matter protests around the nation, and they would be protesting against police violence against black people. And so Sean Feucht would do this Riots to Revival worship tour where he would go in, and wherever these groups of Black Lives Matter people were protesting against police violence, Sean Feucht would come in with his sound system and he would blast his worship music to drown out their cries. And he literally branded it as the Riots to Revival worship tour. And that's where he became really popular in the promotion of Trump, especially, and his Let Us Worship movement took off. And of course, he was popular before then, but this was really when, money began pouring in and he began to, become more radical in these around the country worship movements and stuff. So basically there was that. And then also, like, as he goes, he believes basically what he'll do with his sound system is now that he gets these locations secured through permits, he'll blast worship music on the speakers immediately, like as soon as he can. And he'll blast it on there throughout the entire time that they have their permit. And the reason why is because he literally believes that there are demons that are covering these specific territories. And if you blast worship music, if you blast his albums, then it will send the demons away. And so that's basically his mindset when it comes to worship. Worship is a weapon to be wielded against the darkness, which just so happens to be the Democrats. You need your sound guys in order to blast out the Black Lives Matter protesters. And you need your sound guys in order to blast out the demons away from whatever territory you're targeting. So that's his mindset. And so for him to not have his sound guys in Rochester tonight, it's literally like his generals are missing in action. They missed their flight to Iran or whatever holy war he's fighting in particular. So I have a lot more information about this in my upcoming book, Weapons of Worship, How the Songs of Evangelicalism Form the Soundtrack of Extremism. And I'll get into him as well as, people within the more mainstream movement like Chris Tomlin, who a lot of people don't see quite as extreme as they see someone like Sean Feucht. How does all that fit together? I cover that in my book that's going to be released on September 29th, Weapons of Worship, How the Songs of Evangelicalism Form the Soundtrack of Extremism, and it's available for pre-order now.
As it turns out, Feucht was able to find some sound guys to help him fight his spiritual warfare, so he ended up being quite happy. But as the worship was blasting and he was celebrating the win, he blamed the sound guys missing their flights on witchcraft.
It's been a battle. I'm telling you, every time I come here to New York, to upstate New York, Western New York, I feel such intense witchcraft, like crazy witchcraft, crazy like heaviness, oppression, and it took us a while to break it open. It started with us not even having sound guys, and praise God, we had a few that showed up and helped us, but guess what? It's ending tonight with dancing, it's ending with deliverance.
The next day, which was Sunday, August 9th, Feucht was in Chicago. His plan was to do a Jesus March at 1 o'clock at the Buckingham Fountain, but just as he ran into unexpected witchcraft the day before, in the form of his sound guys not showing up for battle, he ran into an unexpected enemy in Chicago.
I want you guys to see this. It's important for you to see this. It's important for you to share this. No, I'm not in the Middle East. No, I'm not in Iraq or Afghanistan. A lot of places I've been many times. This is Chicago, Illinois. On a street corner, no permits, no planning. They just show up and they're blasting this music. They're blasting the Quranic verses to Allah. They're blasting. So many horrific things are happening right downtown here. The city's being filled with worship and dedication to a false god.
Of course, in one sense, he's correct that this isn't the Middle East. It isn't Iran. This is not a theocracy. But to Feucht, it's as if he wants it to be a Christian theocracy. And the very fact that there are Muslims who are peacefully singing their songs and reading their scriptures is a sign to Feucht that Christians are asleep.
I just want to say this. You guys aren't awake. America is not awake. We don't understand what's happening in our own nation. We don't understand what's at stake. We don't understand what's being hijacked. And the church is asleep. And I'm not going to stop saying this because it's the truth. It's shocking. 1 hour, we're going to be right here. Of course, they make us get permits. They make us get insurance. They make us get all kind of stuff. They just set up wherever they want. They say whatever they want. They do whatever they want. And these corrupt governments let them get away with it. These corrupt governments let them do whatever they want to do. And this is happening in America. Again, not the Middle East. This is Chicago. And you know what? Today we're doing a Jesus March. You know what's been difficult about this? Getting the church mobilized. Right, Marlon?
Yep. Let's go. The time is now. Wake up, church. Come on.
It's interesting how Foyt talks about what we have to lose, but he doesn't seem to realize the fact that he's arguing about us losing the freedom of religion. Yes, this is Chicago. This is the United States. We do have the freedom to assemble as religious people and worship God according to our own consciences. And Foyt is in this total panic that someone else might be worshiping a different God or worshiping God with a different language than he uses. And in whatever way his God or his theology says that they shouldn't. And so those people, just their simple existence on a sidewalk where nobody is getting hurt is a problem. If we fight against that, we have a lot to lose, namely the freedom of religion, which will then turn us into a theocracy. Part of the problem here is that Foyt can't keep his story straight. In that video, he's talking about how the Muslims were doing whatever they wanted to on a street corner, no permits, no planning. They just show up. And then he said that the government makes us get permits, they make us get insurance, they make us get all kinds of stuff. But then in another video, he completely contradicts what was said in the previous video.
You know what's wild? We couldn't get a permit. The city of Chicago would not give us a permit. But yet they don't have a problem giving a permit to these guys. No permit for Christians, but they'll give a permit to Muslims.
So it's an obvious contradiction. On one hand, he's saying they were allowed to do whatever they want, and we have to get permits and insurance and all the stuff. And then in the very next second, he's saying they got a permit and we were denied a permit. So maybe one of the reasons why Foyt can't keep his story straight and all of his conspiracies straight is because he's not looking at this situation through a lens of loving his neighbor as himself. He's not looking at it through a lens of the fact that we live in a democracy where there is freedom of religion. Instead, he's seeing it all through the eyes of a battle. And so whatever he says, whatever comes out of his mouth, is about prioritizing his side of this warfare for our nation.
This is coming to a city near you, America. Better wake up. Better wake up. Serious. And here's the thing. It's not just Chicago. It's not just Michigan. It's happening all over America. Protected by the leaders. It's insane. There's a spiritual war for our nation, and the church right now, I'm just going to say it again, is asleep. This was the hardest Jesus march for us in Chicago to mobilize. The hardest to mobilize. Most apathetic people, most lethargic churches. It's truly disgusting, the state of what's happening in America. And yet, you know who is mobilized? You know who is energized? You know who is ready to go? The Muslim community. They're the ones that have the favor of the city. They're the ones that are fighting. They're the ones not afraid to back down. What happened, man? What happened?
Yes, come on, let's go. Wake up. Wake up for your city. Wake up for this beautiful nation. Wake up for your children and grandchildren. Come on, the time is now. But now we want to march in the name of Jesus and decree and declare the only cornerstone in this city, in this state, in this nation is Jesus. Let us worship. Let's go.
It's so over the top. This level of angst and anger and conspiracy and contradiction, all because you hear a group of Muslims singing. And so Foyt, as he's listening to this, he just continues to seethe. And the more he seethes, the more he talks. And the more he talks, the more he reveals what's really going on here.
And they got their banners, and they're lifting them up, and they're marching through the city, and they're shouting Allah Akbar. And they're lifting up at an altar to a foreign god. And meanwhile, I mean, guys, how much more do you need? Look at this. They're all in hijabs. They're all declaring their allegiance. I'm telling you guys, We need to wake up across America. Some of you don't even realize this is happening in Chicago. You think it's just Michigan. You think it's just, no, it's Chicago. It's Los Angeles. It's New York. It is all of the places, these big cities. They are up for grabs. And this is, you don't need any more picture than this right here.
Notice what he said about a foreign god. It wasn't just a false god. It was a foreign god. What does that mean? Especially when he's making fun of the way they dress. And he keeps referencing the Middle East. This isn't the Middle East. This isn't the Middle East. This is Chicago. And we can't have a foreign god here. It seems there may be a lot going on underneath the surface that is motivating him. There could be some issues with race and ethnicity. There's also an aspect here where to him, theology is territorial. God is territorial. So he sees worship as taking territory, taking back territory for God. And in this mindset, God is not this omnipresent being in which everyone lives and moves and has their being. This is a territorial tribal God, basically, who fights wars and battles through worship. And Chicago is being taken over by a foreign God, and so Foyt needs to take the territory back. So with all of that going on in the background, with all of this tension building within Foyt, he decides to do something about it. One of his favorite songs is a worship song called Sing a Little Louder, and the lyrics say, "Sing a little louder in the presence of my enemies. Sing a little louder, louder than the unbelief. Sing a little louder, my weapon is a melody. Sing a little louder, heaven comes to fight for me." And so with this mindset, he is in the middle of the presence of his enemies, these Muslims, and he is going to then be louder than them, and he is going to wage worship as a weapon, and he believes that God is going to come and is going to fight for him on his behalf because of that. And so with that theology motivating him, he decided to take his Jesus march right through the middle of the Muslim group.
Jesus! 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 What's his name? Jesus! King of kings? Jesus! Lord of lords? Jesus!
They're literally marching right through the center of this Muslim gathering, and they're blowing shofars, they're banging on drums that have American flag stickers on them, and they're chanting Jesus and King of Kings and Lord of Lords really loudly as a way of trying to get rid of this foreign god. And after the fact, just as Sean Foyt in Rochester went from being all in this panic to being overjoyed, he now goes from this seething anger over these Muslims being present at this fountain to reflecting after the fact of his worship battle with great joy over the victory he supposedly gave to Jesus.
Today, I am so proud of those that joined us in Chicago. We marched, man. We marched right down through the streets of the city, through a thunderstorm. We didn't even know this, but the Muslim march stopped at a street corner, and we marched literally right through them, just declaring the name of Jesus. And it was like a holy confrontation that we didn't even plan for. It just literally happened. However, I want to tell you this. To us, it was unplanned, but I feel like to the Lord, this was totally planned. I believe he wants us to actually see that there is a battle that are raging. And yes, we believe that God is going to save millions of Muslims across America, just like he's doing across the Middle East. We see it all the time. I have long-term missionaries that are in Iraq. We have a base across the Middle East. We send teams everywhere. However, right now, they're in America, and they're in our cities, and they're marching, and they're declaring things. I mean, what they were talking about, Allah, Muhammad, all this stuff, guys, it's insane. There is a confrontation coming in our nation, and we're not ready for it. The city is being hijacked with prayers and decrees to a false god, and darkness is coming over this city because of it. So what we were doing today is, as we were marching through the streets of the city, number one, we were full of joy
That is like the number one rule of let us worship. No matter what we face, we're joyful. Number two, we're declaring the name of Jesus, that every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess that he is Lord. So we're declaring the name of Jesus. We're saying Chicago belongs to Jesus, not to Muhammad, not to Allah, not to Buddha, not to Joseph Smith, not to any other of these false gods. It belongs to Jesus. What are we saying across America in our 250th birthday? We're returning back to God, to Jesus. Not many gods, one God.
He says America belongs to Jesus, that Chicago belongs to Jesus. But whatever happened to a government of the people, by the people, and for the people? That never enters his vocabulary. Whatever happened to Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion? Because getting rid of non-Christian religions by calling them foreign gods is essentially establishing Christianity through the cultural genocide of all others. And that's what's going on in the Republican Party as we get closer to the midterms. The Republicans are committing cultural genocide through all the memes and pictures and videos filled with white people that they post on social media. Just look at this past week with the pictures of the Patriot Games, where a bunch of high school athletes supposedly competed. It was a sea of white. Are high school athletes really that white? It's through stories B&G has covered about Texas Governor Greg Abbott spreading Islamophobia like wildfire. It's through their immigration policies, which now include using electric shock gloves so these out-of-control ICE agents can grab people and incapacitate them within seconds through electric shock. Republicans know the midterms are coming. They know they face a steep challenge, and they're seeing all the reports about a lack of enthusiasm on the right. So what does Sean Foyt do? He comes in with his sound guys and his worship warriors to scold the church for being asleep and to drum up fear of the Muslims. This is how the GOP hopes to hold on to absolute power. I want to close by reading a section of my upcoming book, Weapons of Worship: How the Songs of Evangelicalism Form the Soundtrack of Extremism, where I talk about the genocide of the Pequot tribe and how it was in part fueled by anger on the part of these Christians by hearing the songs of the Pequots that were singing, and they wanted to silence their songs. And so I want to close this episode by reading a few paragraphs from my book. One of the ways white supremacists dehumanize people of other races is by criticizing their singing as sounding savage or uncivilized. The result is what George E. Tinker of the Osage Nation, a professor at Iliff School of Theology, calls cultural genocide. Cultural genocide is more subtle than overt military extermination, yet it is no less devastating to a people, writes Tinker in Missionary Conquest, the Gospel, and Native American Genocide. Cultural genocide, he argues, is the effective destruction of a people by systematically or systemically, intentionally or unintentionally, in order to achieve other goals, destroying, eroding, or undermining the integrity of the culture and system of values that defines a people and gives them life. When conquerors silence the songs of other cultures, much like Mason's men did to the Pequot tribe, the songs that remain are the songs of white worshippers. Thus, worship becomes the soundtrack that accompanies white colonizers' victories. In her book, The Land is Not Empty, Following Jesus in Dismantling the Doctrine of Discovery, Sarah Augustine shares how Baptist missionaries from the United States collaborated with the government to develop locations among South American tribes for mineral exploration. She quotes a final report from an Amazon conservation team that said, "Today, almost all Weana are Baptist, and this religion dominates social and cultural life. As a result, traditional dances, songs, stories, cosmology, and other cultural expressions are rarely practiced and unknown by Weana children." Augustine notes, "From the perspective of missionaries, what has happened with the Weana is a source of pride. But Weana people, like indigenous people throughout history and around the world, experience the taking of their songs as oppression." Augustine observes, "When the Weana describe the conditions in which they are forced to live, they describe how they no longer have any sort of future in their traditional tribal family, how they are excluded from the democratic market system, how many people have become inconsolable and have given up. Social oppression and prejudice by members of the dominant culture contribute to the trauma of assimilation and to the stressors causing many people to commit suicide. Throughout history, the elevation of white Christian songs has fueled the disappearance of the songs of others. And that's exactly what we saw this weekend in Sean Feucht's attempt to shout down the Muslims as a way of drumming up fear for the Republicans.
The Lord, I believe, led us into this moment so that we could wake up and we could see truly that there is a spiritual battle. Will the Christians of America rise up? That's my question.
That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. Please like, subscribe, and rate us on your favorite podcast platform, and we'll be back with another episode on Monday.
This has been another change-making conversation from Baptist News Global. The episode you've just heard is part of a special podcast series titled Highest Power, Church and State. Be sure to follow BNG daily at baptistnews.com and subscribe to get notifications about future episodes. Baptist News Global is a national nonprofit news service that is independent, free, and faithful. BNG is supported by readers and listeners like you. Learn more at baptistnews.com.
This episode was produced and edited by Mac Bowles of TKG Communications, LLC, Dallas, Texas.